Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Facebook Live with our group tonight. I'm excited to be here with you guys. Welcome to all the new members that we have in our group. Welcome back to everybody that has been with us for a little bit. Hit me up with a hashtag live or a hashtag replay. Let me know how you're watching here tonight. Of course, put any comments, questions, or whatever down in the comment section, or feel free to DM me as well if you have anything specific you want to talk about or questions that you may have. So, hey, one before we dive in, we've been talking about retirement risks. This is going to wrap up. This is part three of the retirement risk. Now, we're going to be talking about retirement risk the whole time as we go through, and there's a lot of things that relate to retirement risk. And we're going to talk about some solutions and those kind of things to them. So you'll hear me refer to these terms off and on. Tonight, we're going to wrap up and we're going to talk about the last three, which are market risk, inflation risk, and withdrawal risk. We've already talked about longevity, taxation, and sequence of returns. So we're going to wrap it up there. But I'm excited for next week. Please put it on your calendar next week, the 15th, at 7 o'clock, same time, Thursday night. We're going to have a live Q&A. Okay, so please be there. The more we have on there, the better it's going to be. You should have got a calendar invite, well, a Facebook invite rather, and share with other people. They're welcome to join as well. Next week will be a Zoom link. So in the event page of the calendar, there'll be a Zoom link in there versus just live broadcast like this. So looking forward to that. Think of some questions. Come at 7 p.m. for the live Q&A next Thursday, the 15th. So I'm excited about that. I get to do those kind of things. Obviously, live Q&A with our coaching program and my clients and those kind of things. And it's always beneficial to hear from other people and other questions. There's no wrong questions. Everybody's probably thinking of the same thing. So ask away. So excited about that. All right. So let's first dive in. We're going to talk about inflation risk. So basically, everybody's heard about inflation. Everybody's felt inflation for sure over the last couple of years. Thankfully, it's settling down a little bit, but those prices are still up there. So it's the Fed hasn't done anything yet. The inflation numbers look good. They look where they should be. We're getting close to where they should be, but they're looking for some continuation of that before they lower the rates any. So the inflation rate, the change in what they do, trying to combat that it is that rate is really tied to consumer price index. It's consumer price index for all urban consumers because there's different CPIs, and it really has driven the cost of things up. So, and really, if you look over time, and no matter whether you're in a high inflation time or a regular inflation time, you have to account for inflation in your retirement planning. If you don't, you're not planning purposely and correctly, right? Because your money's not going to be worth the same down the road. So since 1984, if you take a 1984 retiree, and you bring that up to this is just because I did the math on this up to 1918, there was 2018 rather, from 1984 to 2018, 242% increase. That's pretty significant. Just to make up for the lost purchasing power, they would have to have that kind of income. Let's look at another stat. So in January 1970, consumer price index was around 37.8. In 2020, it reached 260.23. That's the consumer price index. So that's a 688% increase in the consumer price index in 50 years. That is huge. Okay. Here's another stat for you. At only a 3% inflation rate, costs double every 24 years. So 24 years might seem like a long time, but when you think about the lifespan and just a 3% inflation rate, which is fairly normal, 2% is a little more normal, but 24 years, everything doubles. So basically, what you got to think about is not only do you have to plan for inflation, when you're thinking about that number and what you need on a monthly basis and whatnot, that you need to factor in, and it's a standard rate of inflation. Okay. So the other thing too is that when you're retired, the market isn't acting the same as in the drawdown phase as it was in the distribution in the accumulation phase. You have the accumulation phase, you have the distribution phase, right? When you're putting money in, the market's going up or going down, it has a different reaction. But when you're taking money out and withdrawing in the drawdown phase, the distribution phase, We talked about the sequence of returns risk the other day, the impacts that has. Well, inflation has an impact as well. So, say you're in the market, with some stocks, you're already retired, and really even not with just stocks, because a lot of investments are tied to market confidence and market movements. And say the market goes down, then it starts rebounding. You say, well, okay, I'll take advantage of the rebound. But here's the thing: you're withdrawing money, okay, at the same time that there's inflation, and so you don't get the same rate of return as someone that's putting money in, because you're withdrawing funds out of an account, that had just gone down, right? So when you look at your rate of returns, you really know not just a net return. You need to look at a net return. What exactly is a net return? That is your rate of return on your investments minus inflation. That's your net return. That's really where you got to truly measure it, right? Um, so it has that compounding effect, just like compound interest when you're putting money in retirement, when you're taking money out. Same kind of compounding effect as you're taking money out. You have the market, concerns, and then we're going to talk about market risk in a second, and then you have money coming out. Of course, with that, if you're on a fixed income when you're in retirement, which is normally what you are, because you're living off of saved money and investments. Okay, so you're bringing that money back out, right? And you're recreating a paycheck, but you don't usually have wild swings in income. So that inflation has a very big impact on fixed income. Now, how do you fight inflation in retirement? Well, believe it or not, the stock market is still one of the best ways to fight inflation, because there's better and higher growth potential in the stock market. However, you don't want to put it in risky investments. So, and we're going to talk about the different funding ways in retirement. We're going to talk about the different tiers or buckets and those kind of things. And so you don't want all your money in the stock market, but you're going to divide it into a couple different tiers. And the money that you don't need until longer later on, that can go into stocks, because that money will have time to, you know, wait out the ebbs and flows and ups and downs of the market. Stay tuned for an episode when we're going to talk about the funding tiers in retirement, because that's going to kind of explain a little bit about how um, you're going to fund it and how you're going to put it together, right? So then you have withdrawal rate risk. Withdrawal rate risk is related to sequence of returns, because it's the rate of return that you're taking money out. Some people may have heard of that 4% rule. Okay, well, that 4% rule, that was came about in the 1960s or so. Doesn't really apply as much today, but it certainly doesn't apply in down markets, and it certainly doesn't apply in high inflationary periods, because you're going to have to adapt what percentage you're withdrawing to fit your budget. Not really fit your budget, but to fit the longevity of your budget to make your money last. If you just stay at the same standard percentage month after month after month, um, that's just a disaster waiting to happen. Okay, disaster waiting to happen. You got to have some flexibility, which means that may have an effect on your standard of living, if you're changing around what you're withdrawing out. However, there are ways to combat withdrawal rate risk. Right, it's just putting the plan together properly, getting in the right vehicles. There are ways to combat withdrawal risk. And then market risk is pretty straightforward, right? When most people think of investment risk, they generally mean market risk. Um, as a general rule, common stocks have been the best bet long term hedge against inflation. But they are come with greater investment risk, which we talked about earlier. So you have to have a mix in your portfolio of several different investment vehicles to fund your retirement. You just can't put it all in one basket right there. Okay, but that's one of the best defenses for inflation. You just got to get the correct percentages, of course, the right stocks, and marry that up with the right other investment vehicles in your retirement side. But with the market risk, you got portfolio volatility. If the market goes down, you have obviously reduced investment returns. And then the big thing that's also tied into the market risk is that sequence of returns risk. Now, remember, sequence of returns risk is the order in which the market returns came in. First several years you were down, or the first several years it was up. Um, so sequence returns is related to market risk, but sequence returns is more about the order of it. Market risk is the pure just downplay, down market. Um, and so with a combination of the market risk with the withdrawal rates, inflation, you may have to be adjusting your withdrawal rates. However, there are the proper ways to put that together. There's a proper way to put a plan together to combat all these different risks. So we talked about six different risks, really. Yes, there's probably a few well, there's definitely a few more risks than just the 6, but these are the main 6: market risk, taxation risk, inflation risk, withdrawal risk, sequence returns risk, and longevity risk. You can throw some things in there like healthcare and a few other things, but these are the big ones. And out of all of those, the biggest, is longevity risk and sequence returns risk that we talked about earlier. Not to downplay the rest of them, they all have an impact. They all have a deep concern on retirement planning, and if you're not accounting for all those in your retirement plan, you're not doing it properly. So, and it's just not accounting for them in the distribution phase, although that's where it's most critical. You got to account for them while you're growing your account as well, because you're going to figure out what do I need to grow it to, and how much am I going to need to end result and on the backside to combat all those things, right? So you got to put the whole thing together up front. Sure, you're going to adapt along the way, um, but you're going to be thinking about these risks all along. Okay, and again, it's not a one size fits all. It's not the same for everybody. You have to um, look at your each personal situations, and you're going to put your plan together according to what your goals are, right? So we've talked about the different risks. Please hit me up if you have any questions about that. We're going to have that live Q&A next week, which I'm super excited about. Um, Also noted out there, I posted a thing out there about if you wanted to get the income hierarchy worksheet, let me know. We can hook you up and get that done. Um, that's become that was been very helpful. The income hierarchy worksheet, with our group members that are in our program, um, working through the program. That's one of the first steps as we go through that income hierarchy. So, if you get in the group, or you comment there on the post about the income hierarchy, I can tell you a little bit more about it. So it's been a really key point as a starting point because it kind of sets the first part of the goal setting. So anyway, excited about next week. We're going to keep this one fairly short and sweet because we only had a few different risks to talk about. But ask any questions you have, or bring them to the Q&A next week. So remember, you got to account for all these retirement risks, or you don't really have a complete plan. So until next week, excited about the Q&A, and we will see you all next week.